I don't even know if either set of fans are happy after that game. I don't even know how some of them are going to feel, but I know how I felt watching that, and that was an incredible game of football. Not maybe the incredible game of football I would have expected from Arsenal, but given the context of everything that's happening, I thought it was best that we sort of go through this. There are a number of different ramifications. We're here to pick some of it apart. I know some people are going to be probably in bits right now. They think... I mean, whose hands do you think it's in at this point? Do you think it's in City's hands? Do you think it's in Arsenal's hands? Obviously, the betting public are probably going to lean towards your Man City guys, but technically, the league is still within Arsenal's grasp and is still in Arsenal's hands because, let's face it, that fixture that I made, when I did the fixture predictions, I just kept making that Man City badge bigger and bigger and bigger because we knew that the pressure was building on that. And there are two feelings I was left with after this game, and one of them, empathy, sympathy, a memory of sorts of the 3-3 between Liverpool and Crystal Palace in that year. Quite a different team, quite a different feeling around that side. But there was belief and there was just something there at that time that was kind of deflated a little bit. But there was a different kind of comeback. Like, it's weird, isn't it? Like, I always say this in every one of my videos about Arsenal, but it's about the order in which you play your opposition. It's about the order in which you encounter these sides. And really, in context, is it that bad a draw against Southampton in the whole context of the season? No, they've got some quality players. They've got some aspiring brilliance in there. They're deliberately signed at a certain kind of aspiring for Champions League or Europa League players. There are some good people in there. They've still got some great strikers of the ball, some technically brilliant players who will be signed by much bigger sides, not better sides, but bigger sides. And you kind of always get left with this feeling of, well, Arsenal had the comeback. You know, they early on didn't have the confidence in themselves after the lacking performance against Liverpool, after the lacking performance against West Ham. Maybe this is imbuing them in some way, but 3 draws in a row is reminiscent, should we say, of what happened last season when they needed the top 4 and they just missed out to Tottenham. Now, I get it. Like, you know, we don't want to keep harking back to the past, but to an extent, like the historic club that Arsenal are, they built on the shoulders of giants. And now, of course, there are going to be people that stick pins in elements of this. I don't want to be that kind of person. If anything, I want to put a bit of context around everything that's going on here. So I've got my laptop. The other feeling that I was kind of left with was that I've been listening to a podcast for Alien this last week, so I was kind of left with this like alien feeling. In the film Alien, obviously, there is a lot that happens, but there is a sense of inevitability about the alien getting a majority of the cast of that film. And originally, when you first encounter the journey, you have your heroes, you have your protagonists in your Arsenal, you have the human people who have kind of woken up from a bit of a slumber, bit of a time when things aren't going so well. And in that, you go, hey, they're landing. Something good here is happening. You know, they can just get on that other ship and then get out. And before we know it, there is this rumbling over lunch and there is a chest burster. You know? There is this burst out of this guy and there's blood everywhere and it's horrible, right? I'm not saying Arsenal are that guy. In fact, Man City have kind of done that to a lot of other teams this season. But over time, you begin to put the pieces together and you realise how tricky it is to defeat this alien. Liverpool have had this narrative. Other teams have had this narrative time after time after time, right? You've got to be, and the name of the character here is Ellen Louise Ripley, or Ripley in the film as they call her, right? You've got to be that human, ingenious person who's willing to fight other people off, who's willing to like push the alien away, who isn't susceptible to the acid and all these kind of things in the blood, and isn't susceptible to all the other terrible things that happen around them. You need to be an element of invincibility or an element of ingenuity. And that's what she was as a character. Some people, of course, found her written as a man initially. She could have been a man, could have been a woman apparently in the script. And stick with me here. And that's kind of what people said about Arsenal, didn't they? It was like, you know, Arteta, what is he? Do we really know what he is? He needs to evolve a little bit. Like, you know, is the story about Arteta? Is he really a main story character? And same as in the film. So what I'm talking about here is really the way that the story is told, not necessarily always like the statistics and all those things. Hundreds of people can go through this. We'll go through some of those statistics in a second, but it's about that feeling. It's about the hero element. And you heard from Gary Neville. Gary Neville is trying to tell you a story in all of this. Oh, Arsenal fans are leaving the stadium. They don't believe. And I know it's difficult to believe in a side when when it feels like things are going badly, you've recaptured that old spirit, that old element of what Arsenal were, the success, the trepidation when you're going into games, but also the hope. Don't lose that in these last few games. Keep that. You know, as Liverpool fans, we had the "now you're going to believe us" thing, and we'd sing that as you go, "we're going to win the league." You know, Arsenal, I remember at Anfield a couple of weeks ago, they were vocal when things were going well. They need to keep that vocal element as well. Now, bear in mind, in this game, weirdly, Arsenal become the team that go 2-0 down early on. They score the goal before halftime. There were sloppy goals as well. Like, you know, neither of them were goals that you want to concede. Good finishes, but you'd be disappointed if you're Ramsdale. You're disappointed if you are that back two, particularly Gabriel at times. And I know I had that conversation after a couple of other games. Do you lack another centre half in there? Is it Holding that seems to be an issue? A couple of people kind of getting on his back a little bit, or kind of trying to, how can I put it? Like, not make Arsenal bite their nails almost constant. Anyway. But, you know, don't get on his back because he's your option right now, okay? But Arsenal were also quite blunt attacking. I know that Saka got a good score in this game. In fact, if I go down to this here, look at this. Like, you know, look at these two charts that I've got. I mean, one of them is a chart of players, so let's just stick with that. That back line had Zinchenko back in it. It was slotting into that midfield. They were trying to get the numbers. I don't really think you can blame that back line in this. I think what you can talk about is Thomas Partey in this game. I mean, a couple of times I thought, you know what, maybe, and also obviously the lack of a Granit Xhaka in this, his illness at this point, the fact they didn't have him in this game, I did think was big. You kind of realise how important he is for a side like this fairly early on, right? So then you got Vieira. I don't think Vieira had a fantastic game. In fact, that left side in general, I think, was a good place for Southampton to sort of plunder because it leaves Gabriel quite open. You know, Holding's got that protection of White on that side. And it just... Overall, I don't think Arsenal had the dominance and the control of this game. And weirdly, I think they've really ceded that in the last few games. But you can see, look at this chart here. This is the chart I'm interested in. Look at that dominance. How close Arsenal were to a goal, time after time. The higher this line goes here, look, let me pull that in. The higher this line, these green lines go with Arsenal, the more likely they are to score, right? And there's a couple of times where you see, and it's basically the few times when Southampton have the dominance in the game that they've scored. Very unlikely, of course, that happens, but it is what it is, and Arsenal were unfortunate in this game. People might say Arsenal are lucky. I don't necessarily believe that, especially when you look at charts like this. You see the dominance that they had in this game. I'll go back to that rest of that chart in a second. Odegaard, so key in this. Captain Fantastic. A guy that you just love to watch, and he had a brilliant moment again. Another kind of defining captain moment, I think, for him. Possibly maybe a little bit too late after that poor first half from Arsenal as a team. But looking at the chart again, can you really say they had that poor first half? Maybe they didn't knock on the door quite enough. Maybe the shapes weren't quite there. Maybe Martinelli a couple of times made a couple of questionable decisions. Maybe he didn't have the support on the inside that he's used to with someone like Granit Xhaka. God, I was so nervous in this game. I was just so nervous. Anyway, second half comes around, and I really felt there was a change when he brought those three subs on. Nketiah, Trossard, Nelson. You could see that the players that he took off and the formation that he changed to seemed a lot more dominant. They went the 2-2-6. They had the shape that really suited them. And I felt like there was just a little bit more width, a little bit more shape in the middle of the park when they were pulling Southampton apart. And you could tell Southampton were just sitting back. They were just desperate to get anything out of this. And Arsenal were preying on that. Here's the difference, right? As soon as those guys came on, they stopped trying to go wide and bring it back in and cross it. They tried to pass it with those incisive diagonal passes into the box. And guess what? It started to work. They started drifting inside, and those kind of the flow of the play went through the middle. I know that Arsenal fans will be disappointed, but just stick with me for a second, all right? The Odegaard goal was fantastic, right? The Odegaard goal was brilliant. In fact, I actually thought the Martinelli goal was brilliant. But the Odegaard goal was something else in this game. It's the kind of thing you want your captain to do. And then the final goal of the game, the final piece that pushed Arsenal on, Saka gets that rebound. It comes back out. The pressure. That is where Saka has thrived all season. That is where he's gotten these kind of fundamentally, what you would call this season, Arsenal goals. From there, the pressure is on. A couple of times I thought they let the pressure up. The Partey one. The Partey moment where the Arsenal fans, you would always hear them, they go, no, is he shooting? Not going to shoot. They go, no. Anyway, in he goes with that. Disappointing, you'd say. But Southampton did the right things, and essentially they did some of what they kind of gave Arsenal a bit of a taste of their own medicine with the time wasting. Essentially, they're going down. Hey, we're going to sort of long this out a little bit, and those 8 minutes became more like 10. They really should have been more like 13. Fortunate, you might say, for Southampton that they didn't have more time added on, because Arsenal were knocking on that door. I think it was Nelson who sent it just wide of the post, and Nketiah trying to get into those positions. Arsenal were knocking on that door. It was a good game. It was a really good game. It's probably not the game they wanted to go into it with, but let's scroll over here and just look at this table, right? Arsenal find themselves 5 points ahead. City have 2 games in hand. But with the amount of games they've still got to play, this game is like this now. It's like that. Just is. And like, look at it. It's huge. If I can make that any bigger, I probably can, right? If I can make that any bigger, that's what I'd do. Because look at that. That ship is like sailing in. You're going, it's going to blow. It's just a massive bubble of a game. So huge. Build things up perfectly for this. And let's face it, like, for a long time now, we've been talking about that people are going, Arsenal going to bottle it, all these kind of things. Whatever Arsenal achieved this season has been special. No other side stepped up like this season. Other sides have faded. United have been nothing compared to Arsenal. Liverpool have been nothing compared to Arsenal. Newcastle have been improved, relatively good compared to Arsenal, but nothing compared to Arsenal. People, you're talking about hitting form at the right time. City have been trying to make it click, 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 and now they've made it click, right? Originally, it was maybe they regret letting Gabriel Jesus and Zinchenko go later on in the season. You kind of see where the clicking comes from, the smaller squad, they're getting things together, the lack of experience possibly in these big scenarios coming back to bite Arsenal and coming through for Man City because they do have that experience. So there's the contrast in the two camps now. Arsenal lacking a little bit of confidence. They've got to rebuild that before Wednesday. Here's the funny thing as well. Look at the City. Can I just go down here? Look. Man City fixtures. The fixtures from here on out go like this. They face Sheffield, but they face Brighton, postponed, but good. Then they face Arsenal. Then they face Fulham. Their next game is Arsenal, by the way. Fulham, West Ham, one that Arsenal drew. Leeds, one that Arsenal blew them out with. Real Madrid, Everton, Real Madrid again, Chelsea, and Brentford. Now, this game feels huge. What I'm saying is, there are some sort of, keep hope, keep the faith. Don't listen to what all these other people are saying. It's not worth it. Enjoy the moment, enjoy the race, because at the moment, those nerves, those other elements, they're the things that get to you, right? It's the hope that they say kills you. It's not. It's the other fans. They're horrible. I loved some of the performances today. I absolutely loved the performance from Odegaard late on that could have been better early on. I feel bad for Ramsdale because Ramsdale's had a fantastic season and people are going to get on his back after this. I hope not. One thing that's worth just flagging is obviously the 3 points in 3 games thing is not fantastic. That feels like a bit of a drop off. But the 7 goals conceded in those games have also left Arsenal a bit of a deficit in terms of goal difference as well. And it wasn't all that different. You can look at the Premier League table and look at points difference. I know it probably doesn't go down to goal difference, but it's just worth mentioning that Arsenal's defensive record this season has been vastly improved. It's more the conceding, and they scored against Leeds, but since that international break, there has been a bit of a change. I'm trying to work out what that change is. Has it been a formational thing? Has it been a tactical change in some way? Has it been they've been trying to be too controlling in too many games? Have they tried to evolve too much? Have they not evolved enough? Is it that they've tried to change things, or the things that they actually need to change, such as a right back, such as all these other things, they haven't been able to do? Because, some of those rhythms that Arteta got them into just aren't accessible now. You've not been able to field a Tomiyasu or something like that in every game, all these kind of things. Is that critical? Is this width in every side in the Premier League now so important? I just think it's worth a discussion at least. One thing I'm going to flag before I go, I've said it time and time again, that right back rotation that they had, Ben White is looking tired late on in games. Ben White is looking like he needs a bit of support, a bit of help, maybe a bit of backup. Is there any way late in games that they can field someone else out there? Is it even worth putting a Jorginho on, or would you save Xhaka or someone like that? Would you say, hey, Xhaka, drop to a right-back position late on? Would you say to Partey, that just someone, could you even say to Saka late on, look, throwing other people up, you go particularly wide, or because Nketiah at times fell a little bit deeper, maybe Nelson fell a little bit deeper. Like, who can they put on to ease the burden on Ben White? Big question for me. I think it's worth flagging and worth sort of chatting about. I'd love to know your thoughts on Ben White. I think he's been great, but a couple of times where you just go, what is it we can do with you? Anyway, enjoyed chatting to you guys. I hope you enjoyed the game. I'm not sure you did. I live like fairly close to Highbury, but not that close, but fairly close to Highbury. Tense. I was praying for some weird reason. I'm not an Arsenal fan. I was praying for some weird reason that Arsenal get through, but close. A point is better than a punch in the face, and better than a loss. These past 3 games, you would have said, I think most people would have said Arsenal should have come out with 9 points after this. Would have been 7 points difference going into this, but it isn't. The pressure next Wednesday is huge. In Alien, I think she gets away. But also the Alien sort of lives on anyway, so it's kind of like a Premier League season. Does that make sense? Alien 2, Aliens. I think Aliens was bad. Well, not as good. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you're feeling in the comments below. I'd love to know what you're feeling in here, what you're feeling up here, what you're feeling sort of down there as well. Like, what's the, not just weird, but get what I mean? Like, what have you got your feeling in your, Anyway, chat to you guys in a while. Much love.